How are you doing today, Professor Todd? Sorry, that was so bad. I almost called you by your first name.
You can call me by my first name, that's fine. There's plenty of students. It's always funny when students call me by my first name because they do kind of, like it's crazy, like, no, that's fine, that's who I am, that's what I've been called all the time.
First question, of all the pieces of literature that you teach, which is your favorite?
Favorite to read or favorite to teach?
That's a hard one. I'm gonna go with teach.
Favorite to teach? I really like teaching Frankenstein. Just the fact that students, like they know what Frankenstein looks like, they've seen the monster before, Frankenstein's monster, to actually read the novel and see how it departs from their kind of perception of the Halloween Frankenstein.
Alright, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Eidetic memory, where you can see something. It's photographic memory. Sometimes people say,
like spatial.
Yes, it would be helpful for me as a professor to be able to remember every page in a book.
Did you pick up any new hobbies or skills during the pandemic?
Oh, I tried to learn French. That was embarrassing. But other than that, I'm not sure anything. I guess I did transform myself into the world's worst Twitch streamer, like teaching, so I know how to say things let's throw some emotes in the chat for Jonathan Swift.
What's your favorite thing about teaching?
Sometimes a student will say something that I've just never thought of before. A new reading, a new angle, a new observation. It's really remarkable and it's really pleasurable for me.
But if you could instantly know any language, which would you choose?
It wouldn't be French.
Really?
I was trying to be realistic with French. But given my research interest right now, I think I might want to know a language like Arabic or Japanese, just because of some of the things that happen in film.
Who is your role model?
When you're trying to make difficult decisions about your future, sometimes it's hard to get someone to just give you advice because they don't want to be the one to give you the advice that ruins your life. But someone who really did was Gwen Batten, and I think she's just incredibly intelligent and really helpful to me at a difficult time. So I'd say that she's a professor at University of Washington.
What fashion trend, old or brand new, do you wish would come back or start to catch on?
Oh no. I'm now excited for the time when the early 2000s, late 90s nostalgia kicks in. So something I'm looking forward to is when I see people wearing aviator goggles for sunglasses. And if you need a good example of that, you can just look at Seth Green on the cover of Can't Hardly Wait. That was a fun one.
Okay, you're not allowed to take bribes, but if you were, what could students bribe you with other than money?
Money. It's important that you add other than money because money is obviously the best, I think, tried and true bribe material. But me personally, just candy.
What is your favorite restaurant in the area?
Ooh, there is a restaurant that I can afford to go to every other year called Las Puertas, which is really good. And the chef there has also an amazing Instagram account that I really like. That is Yucatecan Mexican food, and it's delicious.
What made you want to start teaching women in literature?
Oh, that's a good question. Is that very often the people who are repressed, who are not able to access easily the means of production within a particular media, are the ones that do some of the crazier stuff when they get there. And that's what I really wanted to teach in Women in Literature, is to show students women in literature are innovators in literature. They invent genres, science fiction, they rearrange genres, horror. Their novels don't follow the rules. So I think there's a lot, essentially to inform people about media, access to media, and about why it's so important that everyone have access, because those ideas are some of our favorite ideas. If
you could live in any fictional movie, which would you choose?
My son is really into these right now, the Studio Ghibli films, what a beautiful, lush, detailed, tactile world is created with those hand-drawn animated films.
If you could go on an all-expense paid trip, where would you go?
You're always pulled in two directions, right? Do I go to a place I've been before that was really phenomenal, or go someplace I'd never been? And I think the real answer is I'd want to go someplace I'd never been. Probably Chile or Argentina, or if I could prolong it, just a trip to the southernmost area of South America.
If you could make up a word or phrase and have it catch on, what would it be?
I've been trying to get this to catch on, which is, I call it boneyard theory, which is like, the world is a boneyard. it's this sink. It's this not even a great graveyard. Things are poking up and popping up all the time, and there's anxiety, you're in there. And really resituate thinking about present conditions. Because I think most people agree the world as it exists right now could use some fairly significant change.
If you could teach any class you haven't taught before, what would you try? So
I'm going to say the one class I want to teach that I probably won't teach, because I don't think anybody would take it, is experimental and art film. So that might be my class.
You never know. There might be more interested than you think.
Maybe. We'll find out. Well, I'll look at the camera for this one. Let me break the fourth wall. You want to take that class? Let me know. I'd be happy to teach it.
Like the popular saying, do you believe the book was better whenever a book is made into a film?
Oh, what a great transition. You didn't even know how I was going to answer that last one. Look at that. Beautiful transition. This is like sacrilege. There are movies that are better than the book. It definitely happens. And there are books that are better than the movie.
Okay, what was the most inspiring moment or experience in your life?
Wow. I was in New York City for graduate school. And I got onto the subway, and as is often the case, just hectic, not really paying attention. But something is kind of like hitting me on the unconscious level. There's some kind of disturbance happening on the subway. There's a big commotion all of a sudden. And what happened is, there is a person on the subway who seems to be, I would say, performatively vomiting. Me and all these other people are like struggling to get away from the contagious vomiting that's spreading at the other end. So finally get to the train station, the next station, and rush off of the train, just like a mass exodus. And somebody had to have reported this, because there were actually medical people waiting, there were EMTs waiting to get on the train. Okay. So people who were ill, you can rest assured they were taken care of.
If you were a student, what class at Buffalo State would you want to take the most?
I would be most excited to take any class where I'm learning what you all are learning, like techniques for media production, the nitty-gritty of film and sound editing, using the equipment, getting that under my belt. I think there are a lot of opportunities right now for people to make art in digital media, and I think that I would be the most excited to learn those kind of skills.
If a movie were made about your life, who would you want to direct it?
I would want it to be Werner Herzog. Because I identify as like a suicidal penguin running off into the mountains. Like that's how I'd like to be captured.
Who should play you in the film? I
had a friend, a very, very close friend, who used to make fun of me all the time for looking like Mark Ruffalo. And he's a great actor. He plays the Hulk. Does a good job. So I think Mark Ruffalo.
When you were a kid, what did you want to do when you grew up?
My very earliest ambition was to be a professional hockey player. And I have to explain why this is interesting. I, to this day, don't know how hockey works. I grew up on the West Coast. There was no hockey. I don't know how I even learned the word hockey, but according to my parents, I wanted to be a professional. It's like the one sport I didn't play when I was young.
If a genie were to grant you one wish, but put an evil twist on it, how would you try to outsmart them?
Oh, gosh. Trying to outsmart a genie. Given only one wish. Okay, this is really hard, because I think really what I would like to see is kind of what I talked about, like for society to be rearranged in such a way that accessing media production was easier, or that there was really a more actual egalitarian, as opposed to messed up YouTube algorithm, to people being able to produce and actually express themselves. So what you would end up with in that monkey paws situation would be what would it be? It would just be everyone now is an influencer, maybe? Yeah.
All right. Now on to a happier question. What brings you joy in life?
It's a great question. I'm going to start again with something related to an earlier question. Student success. When students are successful and they write me an email, that is phenomenal. That's something that brings me joy in life.
What's your favorite book as a kid?
Far Walker, I believe. And it was about like a lemming who like has to go on this spirit quest to avoid walking off a cliff, which lemmings don't even do, right? I think we all know that now. They don't actually like go over a cliff. This was some evil Disney idea that they like shoved lemmings off a cliff to try to make people believe this happened.
If you won the lottery, what's the first thing you would buy?
Basketball court. Just, for me and people to play on. Basketball court.
Is there anything exciting for you in the future at Buffalo State?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I would go ahead and say the class I'm teaching in fall 2022 that I'm really excited about is weird books, weird movies. I really like, and I would say Buffalo State students in general, of all the places I've taught, so willing to engage with different stuff, different kinds of material, stuff that's not necessarily familiar. I'm excited to see people respond to some of those stranger movies. But something else is exciting. I have the student group. It's called the BSC Cinephiles, and I publish student writing on film, and have film festivals with a specific theme that students organize and give the introductions for. That had to stop because of COVID, and it's starting back up right now. And we're going to do some stuff that I think would be really exciting. One thing that I would like to see happen, a couple of things I think people here could be capable of doing, having a media studies conference, undergrad conference at Buff State. We're bringing people from around the area to give papers and share their research and what they're interested in.
What advice would you give your younger self?
The beginning of every term is when you like get the planner out and you're like gonna write it all down, gonna stay. I got my calendar, maybe on my phone, gonna keep it all together, gonna organize all my notes. But something that I run into all the time in my job is having to do the same thing twice, 3 times, 4 times, and often I think if only I had been responsible enough to keep track of where I put this work the first time. So that is boring old man advice, but there you go.
Still good advice. If you could only eat one type of food for the rest of your life, what would it be? That
same rat trash candy. I saw the end of this question coming, and the truth of the matter is I picked tacos or pizza. I'm going to just be thinking about hot tamales all the time. Just disgusting, gelatinous, treacly candy. That would be what I'd miss.
Okay, last question.
Here we go.
Who would you like to see interviewed at Buffalo State?
Okay, I've done this many times, but I'm going to give you 2 answers. And there are 2 people who were in my cohort. We went through orientation and training together. And one of them is Steve Peraza in the history department. He is, whenever I see him, and I feel like we immediately say like, oh, we need to talk sometime, but everybody's so busy, it's very hard. Every time I talk to him, it's interesting. He's so thoughtful about teaching, and his research is really fascinating stuff. Never even had a chance to tell him that. That's how hard it is to have a long conversation, but the stuff he's working on and the stuff he's published is really fascinating. And then the other person who was also in my cohort is Teresa Smith. She's in the art conservation department, and I have had an opportunity to take a peek at her research because I was a part of a committee that looked at a proposal she put together. That stuff's really interesting. Art conservation at Buff State, some people know, is one of the more famous, prestigious programs that we have here, and the kind of work that they do there. I was lucky to know her to be able to get a little peek at it.
Oh, I'll have to look into them. Well, thank you so much
I
for...
hope you do. You are so welcome. Thanks for coming by, everybody, on my little corner of campus to talk to me.
Yeah, this interview was great.
It's always nice to see you, Hope.